there's a lot of people that think on game day, I need to be a superhuman. You don't need a superhuman effort. You need to be consistent. You don't just need to be consistent on game day. You need to be consistent in the classroom. You need to be consistent on the practice field. You need to be consistent in what you eat, how you sleep, what huddle film you watch. And ironically, the kids that made those plays are kids that were the most consistent. They might not have been our best players. They might not have been our fastest or our most athletic, but they're the kids that are most consistent. And people talk about ball luck and the ball bouncing the right way and this and that and the other thing. I don't believe in that. I believe that when you are consistent in everything you do, that breeds luck. And because you're going to put yourself in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, we're just trying to keep everything on an even keel. It's just another football game. We still got our goal intact. Business is at hand. We're not finished. Our goal is not accomplished yet. It's great to make it to the state finals, but you want to go down there and you want to win it. And we have banners all over this gymnasium, and the one with football for state championships is empty. And so our goal is to put 2025 on that banner this year, and that would be a tremendous accomplishment.
Welcome back to Small Town Ball, a podcast production of Hurrdat Sports and NEB Preps. I am Austin Jacobsen, and Joe Pavlik, the head coach for Bishop Neumann, hanging out with us. Coach, thank you for your time. I know it's been a media circus for everybody this week, but we appreciate you making some time, and congratulations, first year leading the program and back to the state championship game. I know that's kind of the standard out there at Bishop Neumann.
First off, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. It is the standard, not just, in football, but in just about every sport. As they always say, pressure is a privilege, and our kids embrace that, and they execute, and they have poise under pressure. So
that has to be a part of the reason maybe why you decided to make that move, obviously, to Bishop Neumann just this past year with your first year leading the program. Is that something that you took into account, knowing, hey, there's going to be high pressure here, but that championship mentality is something that will also push these student athletes to kind of that next level?
To be honest with you, I didn't really consider it from what the talent or what the history was from an accomplishment standpoint. I went to an all-boys Catholic school in Chicago, Mount Carmel, and I like the community aspect of it. I like the culture, the discipline that's built into schools like these. And Bishop Neumann, when I interviewed, had a lot of the same stuff, and that's what attracted me to the job. I mean, we have great families, great community, great teachers, and that equals great young men. So.
Yeah, big one in Wahoo. Obviously, we'll talk a little bit about that community adjustment too. But just in this first season, what has been that biggest transition or even just adjustment for you?
I guess just I don't really have an answer for you, to be honest with you. It's been, I would say, obviously just learning all the new things, when it comes to the school community. My wife and I moved up from Syracuse to here. So new house, wading through the newness of it all. But as far as football goes, football is football anywhere. So.
Well, I mean, that's a great mindset. If the hardest part of any transition to a new job or new team is finding a house and making sure you're getting settled, I mean, a lot of coaches would take that 10 times out of 10.
Oh, yeah.
Well, tell me a little bit about that time at Syracuse and what kind of led you to maybe some of the early success that you had with Bishop Neumann. And I know that there's the string of success that we had talked about, the talented kids and, the championship mentality and obviously expectation with the program. But how did what you learned at Syracuse apply to those first couple of days and weeks as you got settled in at Bishop Neumann?
I was, Jared Royal hired me down there. He's principal down there in Syracuse. I was 27, never been a head coach. And the best advice I got was, you don't know what you don't know, and be man enough to admit you don't know what you don't know. So those first 2 years was a lot of, doing the best I could with the information that I had, and then looking back and learning from those mistakes. There's some things I look back that I did year one, whether it's a scheme standpoint or a culture standpoint or this or that. And I'm like, oh, wow, I've come a long way. But what, building a culture, and our culture is defined by know your role, do your job. And it's something that I've taken with me from Syracuse to here, and building a culture. And when you're a young head coach, new head coach, especially young, you think the game is more schematics than it is. It's not what you do, it's how you do it. It's, do you do things with positive, contagious energy? Do you things with selfless, compassionate love for your teammates? And you play with a joy greater than your opponent and an intensity greater than your opponent. And those are two big things that I learned there. And we were able to turn things around there a little bit. We went 5-4 my first year, 5-4 second year on a bit tougher schedule. And I learned a lot of lessons there, and I learned a lot of things from the players. We had a lot of really good players down there. And being able to transition that to here, understanding that, learning from mistakes, learning that you have to be relentless, not just in your scheme, not just in the process of game planning, but relentless in how you model yourself to players. A lot of coaches, I was guilty of this early in my career. You say something, but you don't do it. You have to model every single thing you preach, because teenage boys are a lot smarter than people give them credit for, and they can see through the crap. And those are just some lessons I've learned along the way, and what's allowed us to allowed this transition to go so smoothly, and allowed this culture to develop here.
Well, the culture is definitely showcased as you're back into the state championship and you for the first time as head coach. You talk a little bit about that positivity mindset and keeping that positive mentality to build your program, but how did that help this team get through the battles in Class C2? Because you only had one loss, but there was a lot of close competitive teams throughout this season, and C2 felt as wide open as it's ever been in the past couple of years.
Yes, we've had quite the roller coaster of a year. We've had a revolving door of injuries, some season ending, and some that were 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks. And we've just had that next man up mentality of, I'm the guy I'm going to replace, whether it's for the rest of the season, whether it's for 2 weeks, whatever that looks like, I'm going to do as good or a better job than I replaced. And that takes a lot of trust. And you build trust through what I call being a come with me guy. And being a come with me guy is a guy that doesn't lead from the front. He pushes and pulls from the back. And he attacks everything with positive energy. He attacks everything with selflessness. He's a guy that shows up on time, a guy that you can truly trust. Because when certain players go down with injuries, there are teams you see that panic, and they don't know what to do. But when you have a team full of come with me guys, and the next guy steps right in, and the person next to him knows he can trust him because he's done all the right things all year, and he's attacked everything with positive, contagious energy, and love for their teammates and for the game. It kind of takes care of itself, and for the most part, it did for us this year.
And in that same sense, too, even with, as you mentioned, the roller coaster, having to ride out injuries and who was going to be available for that week, I thought the defense at different times actually improved, especially as the season went on, and maybe not in the total statistical box score and not perfect games, definitely showed in that semifinal win over Kearney Catholic. But man, even in those close matchups against UTAN, or when you look back at West Point Beamer, I mean, you guys had some very, very close battles where your defense had to make significant plays, and it felt like as the season progressed, they were making more of those impact plays.
Yeah, everybody... Not everybody. There's a lot of people that think on game day, I need to be a superhuman. You don't need a superhuman effort. You need to be consistent. You don't just need to be consistent on game day. You need to be consistent in the classroom. You need to be consistent on the practice field. You need to be consistent in what you eat, how you sleep, what huddle film you watch. And ironically, the kids that made those plays are kids that were the most consistent. They might not have been our best players. They might not have been our fastest or our most athletic, but they're the kids that are most consistent. And people talk about ball luck and the ball bouncing the right way and this and that and the other thing. I don't believe in that. I believe that when you are consistent in everything you do, that breeds luck. And because you're going to put yourself in the right place at the right time. And yes, defensively, we knew we were going to have to lean on our defense for at least the first half, if not first 3 quarters of the year. We came in, we installed an option offense. It takes a lot of time. These kids have never played an option offense. Takes a lot of time. You saw a lot of turnovers early to mid-year. And And that's just true for early option offenses. But I would say our defense played exceptional, but our offense on top of that since Raymond Central has played very, very well. So it's nice to kind of have both teams on the same page at the same time.
And from, I guess, where you sit right now, from the coaching perspective, it was almost one of those picturesque type of postseasons because you had some moments in close games and battles to get you battle tested for this game. You also had a very strong performance and maybe arguably the best in all classes when it came to that semifinal win. How do you grade how your team handled their business as you went through these last few games in the postseason?
We tell our kids, and not in a disrespectful way, but we say they don't matter. And what they don't matter is the opponent doesn't matter. And it's not the specific opponent. It's not Kearney Catholic, or it's not UTAN or Norfolk Catholic. It is that shouldn't dictate how well we play. That shouldn't dictate if we play to the standard. Because the real question is how good can we really be? How good can we really be? And quite frankly, we made a lot of mistakes against Kearney Catholic. And we did not play to our standard. And so we challenge the kids every week. Compete to a standard. Do not compete against who you're playing across from. And as the season has gone on, that was kind of a foreign concept, with this team. And it took quite a while, but as the season's gone on, you could tell late season to in the playoffs, we started to understand that. And it started to becoming less and less about who we're playing and more about how good can I really be? Can I take the right first step? Can I play with eye discipline the whole time? Can I punch with the right arm? Can I attack every play with positive, contagious energy? So on and so forth.
Coach, you won 34-0, and I'm getting goosebumps for you talking just about. I mean, that's incredible stuff. I can see why you've had so much success in this first year. I do want to ask, because part of that transition, obviously from Syracuse to this first season, you lose a big name, not only in the head coach, but you lose a big name in Connor Booth. But that really had nothing to do with you. You didn't have to worry about that transition, but you mentioned the option attack, and your seniors have really led the way despite learning some new offensive tactics, especially Van Slyke and Son. I mean, they have been phenomenal for you guys so far. How do you decide on which one to lean on, or because of the way your offense works, is it really up to them to pick and choose when the rock needs to get toted that way?
Bo Fuyan's our quarterback. He's about 500 rushing yards, 800 passing yards. He kind of, from a on paper standpoint, he doesn't look like our number one guy, but he really is the straw that stirs the drink. He's the one that makes all the reads. He's the one we check the play at the line all the time based off how the defense aligning. He has to understand the game more than anybody else on the field. And so he really, when it comes to in-game checks, when it comes to what he's seeing, and communicating that with me and our other coaches, he is the one that truly dictates that. And we're not I call me cultures. Our biggest thing, we have 7 standards at Bishop Neumann, and the 6th of the 7th is we believe in no ego. And so our kids don't really care who gets the football. They understand that if they're going to be in an Okie front, our fullback's going to get the ball more. They understand if they're going to give us a split front, probably our tailback's going to get the ball more. They understand that if they're going to pack the box with 8, our receivers are going to get the ball more. And they're the first ones to tell us, hey, coach, they're in this front, or hey, coach, he's lined up like this. Get this person the ball. The other thing, they're very good at communicating and understanding what we try to do. And it's really just how good can we be as a team, not how good can I be.
So this is usually the part where in a preview, I'm asking you, hey, what do you see from this other team? But it really truthfully matters. And obviously you're going to do some game planning. You're going to try to prepare for, your kids against Grand Island Central Catholic. But is this championship game, from your perspective as the head coach and what you're telling your team, it's mostly about Wahoo Newman more than it's anything to do with GICC and the Crusaders?
Yeah, I have a lot of respect for Coach Ashby. I have a lot of respect for GICC. They're tough. They're physical. Their quarterback is exceptional. High school teams at all levels in Nebraska struggle to throw the ball over the middle of the field, and they're exceptional at it. They're better than anybody at throwing the ball over the middle of the field. They have the best wide receiver in all of Class C. They're very good. They're very, very good. Their defense is very good as well. They have the ability to make huge plays on offense, stifle the run on defense. But and it's no disrespect to them. We could be playing anybody. If we focus on what we do, and everybody does their 1/11th and does their very best and focus on the process, I'm not saying we're going to win, but we're going to be able to look back and be proud of the way we played.
It's fantastic stuff so far, Coach. I appreciate it. But before we wrap up, I do want to ask, because you did suffer a loss, and it was against a quality D2 or C2 program in Malcolm back in the beginning of October. With all the positivity and everything that you talked about bringing into this program, what did that next week look like that then guided you to this moment and then to survive some of those tough tests that you've had throughout the season?
Since I got here, I preach that complacency is a disease that breeds mediocrity, and we didn't come to Bishop Neumann to be mediocre. And sometimes, as players, and I played high school football, I played football from 7 years old all the way through I was 22. Sometimes in life and anything, you have to put your hand to the stove and get burned to learn your lesson. And there were some things that we were complacent on. That we were talking about, hey guys, this complacency, how do we address this, so on and so forth. And sometimes it's human nature. Adults do it, kids do it, everybody does it. Sometimes you got to put your hand to the stove and get burned, and that's exactly what we did against Malcolm. We had some issues with turnovers, and we expected them with an early option offense, but there were still too many, and we turned the ball over 6 times against a good football team, and it was what it was. But quite frankly, looking back, I think if we win that game, turn the ball over 6 times, sneak out a win for whatever reason, I don't think we're here right now. I don't think we would have truly learned our lesson, not just as players, but as a coach. I learned so much about who we are, but also from a game planning standpoint, I did a pretty horrible job setting us up. I mean, we were not ready for the fronts. We were not ready for the way they were going to slide their defensive line, the way they were going to bring pressure, and ultimately that was on me. So, all around the board, I think we were able to address some complacency issues and get those fixed.
All right, Coach. Well, it sounds like you've got the guys ready. They've been ready all season. And of course, this is the expectation at Bishop Neumann, like we talked about. What does this mean for the Wahoo community? Because obviously you've got 2 great programs that are going to be representing and trying to win titles in C1 and C2. Does that feature anything into how, maybe not necessarily you game plan, but how you mentally prepare and how you get the guys ready for this matchup?
Very, very fortunate to come in where these seniors and juniors were at Memorial Stadium last year. So I think that takes a little bit of the shock and awe away from it. We have to address less on the process, and when we get there, what does it look like, so on and so forth, which is nice. And I truly think that, after, the unfortunate ending their season last year, I think that kind of plays to our benefit this year. But as the Wahoo community as a whole, I mean, it's just a great place. I had someone ask me after the game against Kearney Catholic, what's in the water in Wahoo? And I said, I don't know. I don't live in town. We live just outside of town. So, we played Wahoo on October 20th in JV. And so Coach Fox came over, and we were just chatting up while the game was going on. And, he said to me after, he goes, good luck in the playoffs. And we had home field advantage all the way through. We were chatting about that. And he goes, remember, classy football runs through Wahoo. And I kind of laughed at him. And given one more week, we could find out if he's right or if he's wrong. So that was a pretty cool moment.
Really appreciate your time. And I feel like I've become like a better person hearing everything that you're talking about. I think that I might join your summer conditioning program. I'm not sure that I'll be all that positive, so you may not want me around, but you have a fantastic base of program building.
If you're around our guys enough, you get on the positivity train. I'll tell you that. I call them energy vampires. I don't like energy vampires.
I love that. Well, Coach, appreciate your time. Best of luck. Safe travels. Stay healthy, of course, and looking forward to seeing what Class C2 has in store there at Memorial Stadium.
Yeah, it should be a good one. I'm very excited for this one.
All right, that's Coach Joe Pavlik of Bishop Neumann hanging out with us today on Small Town Ball. Coming up, we'll also talk with the head coach for Grand Island Central Catholic and Jeff Ashby and preview that side of the matchup. Welcome back to another episode of Small Town Ball, production of Hurrdat Sports and NED Preps, and our next coach, Jeff Ashby, Grand Island Central Catholic, joining us. Coach, congratulations into the state championship game. man, what a season you guys have had so far, and maybe a surprising one for the I guess media on the outside looking in, but nonetheless, you guys have been impressive all season long. How does it feel to accomplish that goal and get into Lincoln?
Yeah, it's been a fun year. We had a pretty good idea that, when we get to this season, that we had a pretty good shot to get to the state finals, because all these guys have been playing since they were freshmen and sophomores. So, yeah, it might be surprising on the outside looking in, but not for us.
Obviously, we talked to you earlier this season, and at that point, we were so impressed by what your defense had done, and they continued to impress throughout the season. How did that defense continue to improve despite what a historic start you had, only giving up, one non-offensive touchdown in the first 4 games?
Yeah, they did, and it was going well. And then we struggled a little bit against Ord in the first time we played them, and so then after that we felt that we needed to make some defensive changes personnel wise and in the positions they were playing. And so we moved a couple guys around, and then, we just got to be more of an attacking defense instead of a read and react defense. And I think that's really improved us a lot.
Yeah, you talk about that Ord contest in which you lost in the regular season on the road and then won at home in the semifinal. What did you feel like was the biggest difference in what happened in that first game comparative to where you were to get the win then in the second matchup?
Well, in that second matchup, in the first matchup, we couldn't stop their run game. We couldn't stop their quarterback, and so we knew we needed to take care of that first and foremost. And so by changing the defense, and that's kind of the reason we changed our defense was because of the first time we played them, and we thought there might be a good chance that we'd have to play them in the playoffs. So we wanted to get things fixed, and so we were able to slow them down. In the first matchup, they had I think a 12-yard drive, a 14-yard drive, and a 16-yard play drive. And so we just couldn't get them off the field. We couldn't get our offense on the field. And so, we needed to get, some 3 and outs, or at least, 5 or 6, 7 plays or whatever, and get them them off the field. And so it didn't look good the first possession in the semifinals, because we had them at 1st and 15 right off the bat, and then they still went down and scored. So, but then we kind of settled in, and guys were doing their job like they were supposed to.
Coach, we'll talk a little bit about where your opponent is and how you match up with them here in a moment. But the last time we talked, we were discussing a little bit about how crazy Class C2 was looking throughout the season. And man, it kind of stayed that way even in the postseason. How did you sift through the noise and kind of just evaluate where your team was, especially with an ever-changing field that was Class C2 this season?
Yeah, I mean, I thought going into the season, it was, kind of a wide open class, as far as who was going to be there, because there was probably about 8 teams I felt like could be at the top. And so it just kind of a matter of how it's going to play out. And you don't know how injuries are going to play out. And I know, Bishop Neumann was dealing with injuries throughout the year, played a lot of different people. And so, yeah, but it came down to, when the playoff brackets came out and stuff, and we looked at our side of the bracket, and we knew that it was going to be a gauntlet to get through it. If we could get through it, we'd be a great accomplishment.
And when we talked the last time, we had mentioned a little bit about that early stretch. You obviously beat a playoff team in Malcolm, but then that second half stretch, you knew the schedule was getting tougher, and yet your team stepped up almost at every opportunity and handled their business, especially in the postseason run. Did you have a mentality switch that kind of flipped, knowing that you were going from, hey, handle our business type of games to we got to step up and meet the expectation of our opponents?
Yeah, it was kind of a heartbreak after losing to Ord, because the guys, they wanted to go undefeated, and their goal was to go undefeated and be state champions. They set that out, and then that was ended, in week 6. So it was, there's a lot of hard feelings after that game. They were really down, and I just, I told them, I said, you got 2 choices. If you had your choice, you want to be 12-1 state runner-up, or you want to be 12-1 state champion. I said, that's how you got to look at it. So you got to, put it in the rearview mirror. we got to improve, fix the things that we did poorly, and move on and get better. And so I think they embraced that, and we went with it.
Coach, as this team has gotten better with the season growing on, I think your stars have played exponentially well in every single contest that they've continued to get after that Ord game. And of course, Grayson Stack, Jack Elbert's kind of the guys that you look at. But who else on this team has improved the most, especially after that loss that kind of maybe didn't turn the tides of your season, but got you over the hump and then put you into this spot into the C2 title?
Well, we have two sophomores in Owen Price and Jackson Ganglish, and those guys both start on defense, and Jackson's our backup quarterback, and he's kind of he comes in and we do a 2 quarterback system sometimes on plays that we have designed for both of them being there at the same time. And Owen starts at offensive tackle for us, so he starts both ways. But to me, the big surprise is Jackson on defense, how much he's grown and gotten better. And I think the defensive switch we made after the Ord game has really fit into his aggressiveness, so he can just play hard and play fast. And same thing with Owen. And Owen is one that we moved from outside linebacker to defensive end. And so we think that helped our line play tremendously to disrupt their offensive line. So those two guys are very, very good football players, and they're just sophomores. So, they fit in with Grayson and that. And then Tommy Schneider is another linebacker that's he's a junior, and he's really stepped up and improved. And I just went back and I'd watched the first time we played Ord versus the second time we played Ord. And to be honest with you, it doesn't even look like the same football team there on defense. Not even close.
Coach, talking about your rushing attack and the offense that you have, it's more balanced than I think what a lot of people may give you credit for because of the rushing numbers and the stats that your 2 lead horses have. But especially for Grayson, just at quarterback and what he does in the run game, he can break off those big plays, but he doesn't really put you in positions where he's giving the ball up or he puts you in a bad spot to, give the ball away or to give the defense an opportunity to make a play. What is his difference over the past year and even in the past few seasons that have improved that game playing ability?
Well, Grayson is just he's an athlete, and he can play quarterback. He's got a good arm. And so he's gotten smarter from the first time, the first year I was here to now. Obviously he's grown and gotten better. And with the help of Coach Ganglish, he takes care of the quarterbacks and he meets with those 2 guys and gives them direction. And so that's helped improved. And so we don't have a lot of turnovers. We knock on wood, we take care of the football pretty well. So that's huge. And Grayson just has that it factor, it was just like in the semifinal game, on the last play before half, we just sent everybody deep, and I had no plans of throwing the football because I just wanted to go in at halftime with the lead. And I said, Grayson, just take off running. I said, if you make maybe 1 or 2 people miss, we might score. And sure enough, he scores on the last play of the first half. And so that's what you get with Grayson. It's like no matter what the down or distance is or what the situation is, you got a shot.
And you've been in this experience before. You've led championship rosters and teams. So when you kind of lean back on your experience, it has to be comfortable for you as a coaching staff, for you as a team to know, hey, when we need a big play, we've got someone who's been in those moments and we trust to make that.
Yeah, it's kind of like an interview I saw with Coach Saban when he was playing quarterback as a high schooler. His coach told him, don't think of plays, think of players. What player do you want to have the ball or get the ball to in high pressure situations? So that's kind of where we're at. We got guys all over the place that, Grayson himself, and then he can get the ball to, Connor and Jack Alberts, Connor and Graham Stava. We got Tommy Schneider that comes in. I mean, we just got guys that all over that we can get the ball to, and we're not afraid to get the ball to. And so that's a nice luxury to have.
Coach, with your experience in this moment and what you can give to what your team is going to go through next week, how do you get them ready? Is it just conversation, or do you have anything else that you can mentally prepare them for playing on the biggest stage?
Yeah, we're just trying to keep everything on an even keel. It's just another football game. We still got our goal intact. Business is at hand. We're not finished. Our goal is not accomplished yet. It's great to make it to the state finals, but you want to go down there and you want to win it. And we have banners all over this gymnasium, and the one with football for state championships is empty. And so our goal is to put 2025 on that banner this year, and that would be a tremendous accomplishment. And I also want to do it, with my assistant coaches. I want, they've worked their tails off. They put a lot of hours in, and they give me a lot of input, and it's just, one big family of coaches. I do all the interviews and this and that, but I couldn't do it without the assistant coaches. And one of our coaches, Keith Kester, he's a little bit older than me, but he was here in '83 as an assistant coach the last time they made it to the finals. So I'm happy for him that he gets to get back there and have a shot to be a state champion.
Kind of unique in that sense that it's Bishop Neumann in Wahoo and then Grand Island Central Catholic in GI, and you get to take both of your communities with you to Lincoln as well. What does it look like for you in preparing against Bishop Neumann, a team that's been in this moment before in years past, but looks vastly different than how they did it in years just a few seasons ago?
Yeah, they're a little bit different with a new coach and stuff. We played them in 2023 when they had Connor Booth, and of course my guys were, like I said, sophomores back then, and getting run over by Connor was not fun for them. So yeah, it's a little bit different. They're more of a triple option team and come right at you, and they like to run the football. So again, just like Ord, we got to figure out a way to stop them. I'd like to know what's in the water in Wahoo that they can, have two state finalists, two different teams in the state finals at the same time. But that's an impressive feat in itself.
Coach, when it comes down to this game, I think a lot of people would say it's going to be maybe whoever runs the ball the best or whoever can hold on to the football. What are those keys when you are looking from this, just in your matchup and how you want to play today or that game?
Yeah, I don't know. It's whatever their defense is going to give us. That's what we're going to do. We're good enough this year to run the football. In a couple of years past, we weren't, able to run the football, and so we threw the ball a lot. So now that we have the luxury to do both, I think we're only like 200 yards difference between our running and our passing game right now, and teach people all the time that in 2012 when I was there with Giltner, that championship game, we threw the ball 53 times and only ran it 7. So, whatever it takes, whatever it takes.
As you continue to kind of gear up and get ready for the game as well, there's always that aspect of, okay, what is that X factor, or what is going to be that underlying thing that we need to prepare for, right? Because everyone thinks they have tricks up their sleeve, but how do you get a team ready like yours against an offense that everything's going to look pretty similar? I mean, it's a Bishop Neumann offense that has plenty of film on them before. It looks like it's going to be, hey, just line up, take care of your assignment, and take care of business. But is there that added layer of, hey, we got to be prepared for just about anything?
Yeah, Bishop Newman's going to do what they do, and they do it well. I always say that the easiest teams to prepare for are the hardest teams to stop, because they do what they do and they do it very well. So we've just concentrated all week on playing assignment football. When you play that type of offense, everybody has to do their assignment, because if one guy doesn't do his assignment, thinks he needs to go help somebody else, and all of a sudden his guy's in the end zone. So it's one of those deals. You just got to do your assignment, trust the guy next to you that he's going to do his, and hopefully we can get him stopped, at least slowed down.
You mentioned the impact of trying to get that football banner into the gym and adding a championship to GICC's football program. Does that make you feel like the underdog in this one because Bishop Neumann has had some recent success?
Yeah, those teams like Bishop Neumann and Norfolk Catholic and those teams like that are successful year in and year out, and that's what I talk to the boys about and the coaches about is, we want to make this a program, not just a one year wonder. We want to year in and year out to be highly successful and have a shot at these things. And so that's our goal as coaches, to make it a program. And then hopefully some more of those numbers come up on that banner.
Well, Coach, we appreciate your time today on Small Town Ball, just like you did last time. It's always great to chat with you. Best of luck, safe travels, and hope that you're staying healthy for that Class C2 final against Bishop Neumann.
Okay, thanks for having me on.
That was head coach Jeff Ashby of Grand Island Central Catholic Crusader football. As we are previewing all the classes, you can check out more on Hurrdat Sports and NEB Prep.